The IWI Masada versus the HK VP9. Let's check it out. The Masada 9mm is the first IWI striker fire polymer frame pistol. They have had a long tradition of firearms built out of Israel, really high quality. The Tavor, the Galil, the Jericho. I mean, there's a number of different guns that are in this line. And as soon as I got this pistol, I thought about the VP9. To me, out of all the guns, I think this looks the most like the VP9. Now, there's some major differences, and we're going to look at them. One of the things about the Masada is that the price is very reasonable, whereas the HK VP9, even though it's still a fairly reasonable firearm, the price is more. But there's a lot of cool features about the IWI, and so we're going to take a look head to head, shooting them side by side. One of the funny things though at SHOT Show this past year, 2020, they changed the VP9 and added a lot of features that exist on the IWI Masada. And so when I originally did the video, I've had to change it a couple of times. There's some things that have now been added to the VP9. But one of the big things is price. The price has gone up, which was already a difference between the two already. But we're still going to look at a lot of the different features and some of the extra things that you can get for your VP9. Now, one of the big things about the VP9, there's still going to be a lot of these out on the market that are still the original. And so when making your choice, you may be able to get a really good price on a VP9. But I still don't think it's going to beat the price of the Masada. Guys, if these two guns were laying side by side in a gun shop, I would think they were very comparable, very similar. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring this video and compare these two together. The IWI has just been released this past year. It is IWI's first polymer frame striker fire pistol. And then we have the VP9, which is from HK, and it is its first striker fire polymer frame pistol. They've made polymer frame pistols for a long time. In fact, the VP70 came out in 1970. It was the first polymer frame pistol, but they were double single action. And even the USP series, same thing. Guys, if it came to a pistol that I would depend on for self-defense, either one of these pistols would be great. Because price is such a big difference between these two handguns, I felt that it was something we needed to address ahead of time. And then as we look through the features, you can decide if the HK is worth the extra money. With the Masada, we're seeing those for around the $425 up to about $450 range. Give or take, you can find it different prices, but in that ballpark. With the VP9, typically the original version, which we have here, $575, around that area. Now that they've upgraded some of the features, we're looking at about $700, at least at this time, because it's a brand new pistol. And so we're looking at a considerable difference in price between these two, and yet honestly, the features almost run head to head. So the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and drop our magazine. We do have the push button magazine release, and it is ambidextrous. We have a 17 round magazine, and of course it comes with two. And the gun is unloaded. With the HK VP9, we do have the paddle mag release. It is ambidextrous on either side, but they do have the push button B model. And so you can get that, but it's not ambidextrous. We're going to drop our magazine. Now this is the original. It came with a 15 round magazine. Now with the upgrade, these are 17 round magazines and they're still flush fit. So as before, that was actually a disadvantage for the VP9, and now they fixed it. But if you're buying an original, you're going to get the 15 round mag. And the gun is unloaded. Both of them are polymer frame, both are striker fire, both have front and rear cocking serrations, both have accessory rails, both have trigger safeties on the trigger. Now the Masada was introduced with an optics ready plate. You can change these out. There are a number of different adapters, and they're polymer, which is kind of an unusual way, but they do fit very secure. With the original VP9, which we have here, there is no optics ready, but with the new 2020 model, they do have adapter plates and they do have RMR cuts. And so you're going to be able to add a lot of different red dot sights to the new model. Also the sights, which as before, the sights were very close. 3-dot, dovetails, I mean, they're very close in the same kind of design. But with the new VP9 model, it has a blacked out rear, then just a dot at the front. So that is going to make a difference. These are luminescent sights on the original VP9, and you can get night sights. And the muzzles are different. We do have it kind of slanted right here at the front on the Masada. On the VP9, it's more of a straight line, and the accessory rail comes out a little bit farther. But with that, we have the exact same size with the pistols. I mean, they are pretty much identical. Now, there is a difference in grip as well, and as you can see, this one kind of bows out a little bit on the HK, whereas the IWI Masada is just more flat. Now, you can get additional back straps for both pistols. And I believe this is the medium on the HK. On the IWI, this panel actually comes out and it's a little bit of a larger panel, but it still pretty much has this type grip angle that's more straight. And with the VP9 again, it gives you a little more curve, it's a little more of a hump. And guys, when it comes to the Masada, you can see that it's actually a lower bore axis, and so you're going to get a little bit of an advantage there. And guys, to be honest with you, taking both pistols in your hand, the HK definitely feels it a little bit better. It's not as thin. And that's one of the things about the side panels on the HK VP9, which the side panels can also be replaced. And so that's one thing that HK, to me, really has some advantages over getting that custom grip, because you can take out your side panels, there's 3 different sizes, and there's 3 different back panels. Whereas with the Masada, it's this entire piece that comes in and out, and it does add a little bit here when you get to the larger sizes, but it still doesn't match the HK VP9. The grip texturing on the HK is a little more aggressive than the Masada, but it is very nicely done and it's fairly grippable. But you'll definitely, especially at the range, you can tell the difference having a little extra grip there. We do have finger grooves on the VP9. We have a flat surface on the front strap of the Masada. Now, another major difference between these two pistols is that the Masada has a chassis system that is removable, so it is modular. And that way you can change out your grip frames, you can change out your slide barrel lengths. I mean, you can configure this however you want to. That is excellent for states that have a lot of handgun restrictions or extended waiting periods. And so I really love that, and that's what a lot of companies are now going to. With the VP9, it's your standard frame. The frame is considered the firearm. It is serialized right here, and the chassis is not removable. Ambidextrous slide release and ambidextrous slide release, with the slide release a little bit extended right here on the right side. And the takedown lever on the Masada right here, and then on the HK right here. One thing that I do like about the HK is it does have these little cutouts, so when you're dropping your magazine and you need to rip it out, you can kind of get your hand up there and pull it out in case it gets stuck. With the Masada, that magazine base actually protrudes out just a little bit, so it makes it really easy to grab hold and to pull those out. The weight of the HK VP9, 1 pound, 10.6 ounces. Weight of the IWI Masada, 1 pound, 9.2 ounces. And one thing that I really like about the VP9 are these little cocking ears, which are removable, by the way. But you can take them, and it gives you a little more leverage to pull that slide back. You do have your serrations, and they're fairly aggressive. But with this, it just, again, gives you that little bit of leverage to be able to pull. On the Masada, we have our standard serrations. And guys, they're very grippable, whether you get them front or back. Now, these guns are not loaded. We're going to check the trigger pull action. And again, you have a little bit of a safety right here. It kind of blocks the action unless you get your finger directly on the trigger. So we pull it back. You can tell there's a little bit of play right here. And then we have a nice break. There's a little bit of stacking right before, but not a lot. And reset right there. When it comes to the Masada, again, we have the trigger shoe. Right here, it breaks that. Then we have a little bit of take up, not a lot. And then we have a little bit of stacking, and then a nice break. I would say that the trigger on this one has a little more stacking than the HK. There we go, there's the reset. But the break on the Masada is actually more crisp than on the VP9. So it's going to give you really two separate type triggers. You're going to get a little bit less creep when it comes to the VP9, but you're going to get a nicer break with the Masada. We're going to check our trigger pull weight with our Lyman trigger gauge from Brownells. We're going to do the VP9 first. 4 pounds, 8.1 ounces. The Masada, 4 pounds, 8.7 ounces. All right, I want to thank Fiocchi for sponsoring the ammo. They're all made in the USA. And also, Maglula, baby, makes these double stack magazines so easy to load. Now, I've shot both of these pistols pretty extensively. We've done separate reviews on them, but there's nothing that substitutes putting these two guns side by side, shooting one and then taking in hand the other. And you can really get a feel for the differences between the two. One of the things that was a big takeaway from both of these pistols, and everyone that shot them agreed, that the HK VP9 was a little more ergonomic. A lot of that has to do with the thicker grip. And it does have the little finger grooves, but I think that had a lot to do with it. And two, it's a little bit heavier. So that does make a difference. With the Masada, the grip's really thin. And while I like that thin grip, you felt like you had a little more purchase on the VP9 than on the Masada. Also with the cocking gears in the back of the VP9, that helped with reloads, helped with pulling that slide back and feeding that next round. We also felt that the HK VP9 shot just a little bit flatter. Not terribly noticeable, but just definitely a little flatter shooting. Honestly, taking either one of these out to the range, I mean, they're going to get on target. They're a pleasure to shoot. There's not a lot of major difference. It's just, shooting them side by side, you do pick up on some things. And guys, like I've said 100 times, we live in the golden age of firearms. There are so many choices that you can get your particular interest. Now we're going to disassemble the VP9 first and then the Masada. So go ahead and drop our magazine, check to make sure the gun again is unloaded. Bring it back into slide lock and then bring down your lever to a 90 degree. Then release your slide and then it comes right off. You don't have to pull the trigger. Here we've got our frame, and of course you see this nice large locking block. It does have nice rails. I mean, they're very ample, a lot bigger than a lot of your standard striker fire pistols. And then here at the rear we have some smaller rails. Then we have our recoil spring and guide rod, and it is all steel, it's captive. And then we have our barrel, our cannon grade hammer forged barrel. Really nicely done, which is typical for HK. When it comes to the Masada, drop your magazine, go ahead and check to make sure it's unloaded. Hit slide lock, bring down your lever to 90 degrees, and then go ahead and release. Now we're going to pull the trigger and pull it out. Sometimes it is a little tricky to pull it off, but there it goes. Okay, now we have our recoil spring and guide rod. It is polymer, and then we have a captive guide rod. And then we have our cold hammer forged barrel. Of course, the inside of the slide, very well milled. It's a little bit dirty from shooting, but definitely a little bit different design with the striker. There's a little more exposed right here. Then you have your striker safety. So we have the VP9 on top. We have the Masada at the bottom. And you can see Very similar in a lot of ways. But the real big difference is the internals. This is a chassis system. It is removable and the serialized part of the firearm. On the HK, that's not the case. It's the frame that's serialized. So we can kind of take this, pull it out, and then we just bring out our chassis system. And guys, this is the gun. And when I did the full review of the Masada, I showed this, and you know, guys, this is something that we're really going to is the chassis system, because you can change your frames out, you can change your slides out, and you don't have to go and buy a whole new gun if you want to do something a little different. Now guys, to reinsert the chassis, you actually push it into the back. There's a little spring you have to pick and push in there. If you want to see that, you can go to the full review of the Masada, and that'll show you. But I didn't want to get it on camera because it was taking too much time. You don't have to remove your chassis every time you clean it, which makes it nice. And so for reassembly, it's just like any other striker fire pistol. We put in our barrel, our recoil spring, and our guide rod. Bring it back over the frame. Slide lock, bring it down, and we're good to go. With the HK, drop in our barrel, put our recoil spring and guide rod. One thing about the guide rod on the HK is a little tight. It's a little bit heavier. Bring this down, slide lock, bring around our lever, drop it. We're back in business. Now, one of the advantages of the VP9 is you're going to have a lot more aftermarket support. These have been around now for a good while. And so you definitely have some different choices with the paddle design, with the push button mag release as well. I mean, you got those options. And then you have options with sights, holsters, all kind of things like that that are already available. Yes, the Masada will bring it up and will catch up at some point, but this is definitely something to consider. Also here, HK released their long slide, and this goes right on your standard VP9. You can buy this separately. This one does not have the optics ready, but I believe now they're making it with optics ready. And it has a blacked out rear, and it has a fiber optic front. You have slide cuts. I mean, this is really nice, and I did a review on this a while back, and I'll have it annotated right here. Now, another big plus for the VP9 are the X-Tech magazines. They're making standard HK magazines. They're actually less expensive, and so you can get those. These are the standard 15-round magazines, and I'm sure that you can get the 17 rounds at some point. But one of the big things is they have a 20-round extended base plate. So I have 20 rounds here. But this takes your standard HK mag, so you can actually adapt this. And so if you can add 5 more rounds with a 17-round magazine, you're getting up to 22 rounds with a little bit of an extension. And that's X-Tech mags. Those guys are great. These mags are flawless. And I'll have that review as well annotated. But again, that just gives you some more advantages with the VP9. Yes, it costs more, but again, more aftermarket support. And then on a side note, Seth, when I asked him what firearm did he want, what handgun did he want to have for his home defense gun, and he chose the VP9. And actually, after shooting it between the Masada and the VP9, he said, I still love the VP9 much better. I love the way it shoots. Now, we've already talked about price, but we're going to mention it again. And that is a big difference between the two pistols. With the Masada, $425, $450. With the VP9 original, $575. With the 2020 model, we're looking at around the $700 plus range at this point. Those could come down, and also the standard VP9s may come down in price because of the new model. So that's just coming up. Time will tell on that. But guys, that is one of the biggest differences between the two pistols. But also with the chassis system that's in the Masada, that is going to give it a lot of advantage. You can change out your grip frames, you can change out your slide to different configurations, your barrel lengths. And again, guys, for people that are in those states that have a lot of restrictions, that's very appealing. Now, in full disclosure, IWI sent the Masada, but HK also sent the VP9. And guys, I'm telling you, putting these side by side, you're going to tell some difference. If not, these would both feel very similar in shooting. So it's one of those things where you need to sit down, put both of them in your hands. If you can take them out to a range and shoot them side by side, that's even better. Some of the features on the IWI definitely come into play, and yet some of the features for the VP9 come into play. It's all about personal preference. They're both good quality, they both are very reliable, and they're accurate. Be strong, be of good courage. God bless America, long live the Republic. trigger. No. Now again, guys, these guns have been unloaded. Now the guys, these guns have been unloaded. And I want to thank, want to thank Robbie for that sneeze.
Bless me very much.
Bless you, Robbie. Bless you, brother. That gunpowder's getting to you.
It's all this fresh air. Bang, 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 bang.
Let me give you some PBs.
All right.
Okay.
Dad, check your zipper.
Man, my zipper's down. All right, ladies, calm down. All right, let's move it around then.
All the ladies